Hello, and thank you for coming on over to hanging out with us on Out on a Limb with Gabby Allan. I have Rhonda Rhonda Penders is here today. She is the owner of the Welders Press, who I have been with since 2005. I think I might have signed the contract. 2006 is when the book came out. I have consistently published with them over the last 16 years, 15 years, and I adore them. So let me tell you how much I think that Rhonda just usually hung the moon. So I am super excited to have you here today, Rhonda. I'm going to ask you the question that I ask everyone, and that is, what is that? What is it that you do, and how do you do it?
Well, Gabby, let's see. I'm not sure how I do it or what I do, but I'll fake it here. So, as you said, I'm one of the owners. The Welders Press is owned by two women, myself and RJ Morris.
Yes.
And we are, I'm in New York and she's in North Carolina. So we always call it the Southern and Northern, headquarters.
Right.
And so I pretty much, my part in the company is I take care of all the books up to publication. So I handle the editors, I handle the contracts, I handle questions, a lot of that kind of stuff. And then RJ takes it with cover art and distribution and production.
Okay.
I also work a lot with my marketing team, so I kind of cross into that area with them. And how do I do it? A lot of long hours, but the old adage, if you do something you love, it's not work, is so very true, because doing this for the past 16, 17 years has been just wonderful. Helping authors fulfill their dreams is just the most amazing thing in the world. So that's why we do it every day.
I have to tell you that I absolutely love that I found you guys, and that I have been with you as long as I have. No matter what else has been going on. At one time, I was doing some publishing with Harlequin. I've been doing some publishing with Kensington. But in the end, I always come back to you because, and I stay consistent with you because, for one thing, I love your covers. I love your covers. I love the attention that you pay to the details. And you want to talk about answering questions. Rhonda is super quick. You have anything for her, and nothing is completely off the table. So I have never felt like, oh, maybe I shouldn't, I mean, obviously, listener, you come in professionally, but if you have a question, like I once had an order of books come in and half the book was gone, and I was like, oh no, Rhonda, what do I do, Rhonda? And you were like, okay, we're sending another set. Don't even worry about it. We'll have them to you there soon. And so there's a lot of, I feel like the Wild Rose Press is more family than anything else. I mean, is that the kind of atmosphere that you wanted? I know, being an author yourself, that you wanted somewhere that you wish you had, and you built that. But were you looking for like a family atmosphere also?
So the one thing that RJ and I wanted when we started the company is we wanted it to be kinder and gentler. We hated the way publishers treated authors. You didn't get an answer, or you took years to get an answer. You never could just email the editor and ask a question. You had to go through channels. We didn't want any of that. We wanted it all to be very open communication. So that was our biggest thing. And it became a family. We're very, very blessed that a lot of the editors that started with us are still with us.
Yes.
There've been a few people that have come and gone, but for the most part, I'd say at least a third of our staff have been here since we opened the doors.
Wow.
We're
awesome.
all woman run and owned, which is funny because the men that have come and gone haven't lasted. They don't work like we do. I would love to have some, but they just don't stay.
I got you.
So it's a woman-owned, woman-run company, all women editors, artists, production people.
I love it.
Pretty much that's all of us. And we've become a family. We shared stories about our kids. I mean, we've literally watched each other's kids grow up since we've been in the business so long. We've been together online when people's parents have died. We have been there to celebrate grandbabies. We've been there to celebrate new pets. I mean, everything. as close as you can be in a virtual company. And it is a virtual company. We do not have a brick and mortar office.
Right.
We were virtual before virtual was cool, Gabby.
I remember that. And I think that was one of the things that fascinated me about coming to you in the first place, was that when I first started with you, it was ebook first.
Yeah.
And we went through a period where it was like, okay, you're definitely getting an ebook, but we're going to try to do some print stuff, because we get that is what some people are still liking, but we really do want you pushing the ebook, because that makes more sense. That's what our company is about. But so the other thing that I was thinking about the other day is that if you, dear listener, are looking for a place that will teach you and not smack you while they're teaching you, go to the Welders Press. I cannot express enough how much I learned in my early years at the Welders Press, that I was then able to transfer into relationships at Harlequin, at Kensington, and I knew what I should be able to expect. And so I wanted all of it. And I was like, oh, because I was just telling Rhonda before we got started, when I sent my first manuscript into the general inbox, I got Nan Swanson, and Nan has been my editor for 16 years now, and I adore her. She's never allowed to retire, and I have often offered to replace her comma key, because if you ever look at any manuscript that comes back to me from her, it's like comma, 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 comma. And I'm like, I really do try it. She's like, you know what? I know when your stuff comes in that it's time to replace the comma key. And I was like, I know, I'll send you one for Christmas, I promise. But when I sent in my first manuscript, I sent in the wrong file. And she wrote me back and said, I was really enjoying this until I got into chapter 7 and realized that 13 is in the middle of it. And I was like, oh my God, please, because she could have just said, thank you so much for your time. Unfortunately, this doesn't fit our list, which is like the vaguest, most frustrating rejection in the world. And instead, she came back and said, I really enjoyed this. However, I think I might have the wrong file. Would you mind sending me the other one? Because I really am liking this story. I did. I got a contract. I was off and running with you guys, and so I do feel like there's a certain level of, there are a lot of newer authors. And if you learn at the Wild Rose Press's knee, you are not going to go wrong. You're not going to go wrong, and I think that's also part of the family. It's almost like there's almost a piece of like an apprenticeship, like, okay. And you do wonderful chats. That's the other thing I wanted to make sure to mention, is that the Welders Press has chats, and they will go over all kinds of stuff. So is your chats, do you have them planned out pretty far in ahead, or do you just kind of see what is going on and address that?
Well, a little bit of both. So our chats that you're speaking of every Tuesday night at 8:00 Eastern, and on our website, which is thewelderspress.com, there's a button for events, and you'll see free chat. So Tuesday nights, we started this probably way back in the beginning years. We have a chat every Tuesday with a different topic. Sometimes it might be promotion, sometimes it might be dialogue, sometimes it might be characterization. It's always a different topic. So we try along about December, I'll put a note out to the staff and say, okay, let's get the chat schedule filled in.
Right.
And so people will pick a date, and they'll pick a topic, or they'll say to be determined.
Okay.
And we have about 30 to 35 members of the staff right now. And probably 25 of them will do chats for me. Some of them just don't.
Yeah.
And so once we fill in those 25, then Lisa's the marketing director. She and I will kind of take a few on marketing and things. And then what happens is, organically throughout the year, somebody will have signed up for, October 5th, and suddenly they can't do it. And so they'll say to Lisa, I can't do it. So-and-so's, whatever. So we have some like in the back that we hang on to topics, and we'll pop those in. We'll say, okay, time to talk about dialogue again, or time to talk about Instagram, or time to talk about Facebook, or some of these other ones that we kind of use. We do a couple of times a year. Our most popular ones are always on marketing.
Yeah.
you
It's
know?
so hard. I mean, things move so quickly. So when I started Gabby, because I published with the Welders Press under Misty Simon, which is my real name.
Right.
I which if you call me Misty, don't worry about it. Everybody is aware that
Right.
we're interchangeable. We're both the same person.
Yep.
But that so I was doing Facebook as Misty Simon because that's where I had the most interaction. And so then when Gabby Allan came along, I was like, well, I kind of don't necessarily want to double do on Facebook. So I moved over to Instagram. So Instagram, is popping still, but now there's TikTok and it's book talk. And,
Yes.
there's all kinds of, it's so hard to keep up with what's going on. And you do all of this research, you get all of these friends, you make sure that you're entrenched where you're supposed to be. And then all of a sudden it's something else. And you're like, oh my God, all I want to
Now
do
you
is
learn
write a
something new
book.
again.
Yes, I just
know.
want to write my book. But I mean, I was even at the hairdresser yesterday and she's like, oh yeah, I took a class last week and they were saying, make sure you're on social media. And I'm like, seriously, for hairdressing? And she's like, yep.
Yes.
Yep. I said, because that used to be word of mouth.
Right.
If you walked into like coffee with your friends, like you had five or six friends, and they're like, oh my gosh, your hair is adorable. And you're like, yeah, totally go down to Brandy.
Right.
That was what you did. But now everything is so social media based that I really do appreciate that you guys keep on top of the trends. Like I remember when you introduced the library catalog and I was like, oh, okay. All right. Because I know a lot of people are like, oh, self-publish. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing to do because I have self-published some stuff and it's, it's fine. I like what I did. I gave me an opportunity to have my kid do my covers. But there are still a lot of things that I cannot do or I as myself cannot do that I would have to hire out to someone else.
Right.
And so I really do appreciate that, like it's the whole package at the Welders Press. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah,
and I love your editors.
Yeah, they're awesome. The thing with self-publishing that I tell audiences a lot is there's nothing wrong with it as long as you do a good job. There's nothing worse, and we've all done it, than getting a book from Amazon or wherever that was self-published and it really stinks. Because what happens is you will never buy another book from that author because you know that the quality isn't there.
Yes.
And even if you got it for free, which I hate free books, but even if you did, a bad book for free is still a bad book.
Yes. Yes, it is.
And if you can't read the story because there's so many typos or there's just so much wrong with it or the pages are messed up, I wouldn't put my name on something that's going out to the world unless it is the best it can possibly be by me.
Yes. Yes. And you need an editor.
Right.
There are some people who are like, well, I have beta readers. And I'm like, you need an editor. Yeah. I'm just putting it out there because like I've written stories before where I would swear that I had put that sentence in there that makes the rest of the scene make sense. But my head, as I'm writing or as I'm reading it or editing it myself, my mind just sees it, even though it's not there. And Nan will be like, so outside of commas, what is this? What is this?
Yeah.
And I'm like, ooh, thank you for catching that. But I do really enjoy though at the Welders Press that you're able to write the kind of stories that you want to write. So when I started, you were all romance. And there's been sort of like this flow. I know at one time you were doing young adult, which you're not anymore. Is that correct?
We're still.
You still do. Okay. And then you had the there's just been a flow of different what you want. But now you're into you are taking more mainstream stuff.
Yeah, so in 2013, because so many of our romance readers romance writers wanted to do women's fiction, we had to open the doors to that. And we knew when we opened up to women's fiction, then we had to open to science fiction, then we had to open historical fiction. So we just said, we're just going to open up to mainstream fiction.
Makes sense.
And so at that time, back in 2013, we opened up to everything.
Okay.
Thrillers, political, whatever. Right. And then the YA, we've kind of done we've done it all along, but we don't really push for it. But now YA is huge. I mean, YA is the big thing. So so we take a lot of YA. We do a lot of YA.
Good.
The one we do the very limited amount is children's picture books. So children's picture books, if a writer has a book that is already illustrated and it's ready to go to distribution, we will work with them to get it out. But I don't have illustrators for children's books.
Right.
So the 4 or 5 we've done have come to us already ready to go. They just need help with printing and distribution.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, I mean, and I think, opening up has allowed more stuff to come in and then more readers to find the Wild Rose Press, which then they continue to shop because they trust what you're putting out. I also have been I was in the Valentine's short.
Candy Hearts.
Yes, the Candy Hearts. I was like, okay, but it's Candy Hearts. Yeah, I could see the cover. I just couldn't bring it into focus on what it was called.
Candy Hearts.
But I love your new cookie stuff.
Christmas cookies.
Yes. Now, are those are you getting a lot of good stories in on those?
We had 80 Christmas cookies contracted.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. It got a little bit out of control with the Christmas cookies. So we have Hanukkah cookies and we have all sorts of winter holiday cookies.
Good.
Became a big discussion about whether they were really still Christmas cookies, but it's kind of the name of the series. So we're still sticking with it.
Got it.
But we, Lisa was not pleased that we have 80 that all have to come out between really the middle of October and New Year's Day, right? You've only got this window where you can bring out Christmas cookies. So you're going to see a lot coming out this fall.
Right. Totally makes sense. Yeah. Are the ice cream ones doing well also?
Ice cream ones, One Scooper 2 was our ice cream series we started last year. Every story had to be set in the summer and had to have something to do with ice cream. Whether you worked an ice cream stand or you did homemade ice cream if it was historical, and they were short stories. And they were really popular. Not as much as the Christmas cookies, but what we did with those is last year's cookie or Christmas ice cream that came out, we put them into anthologies in the fall so they could have print books. And then the ones that are out this summer will do the same thing so that the short stories that are usually just electronic can be in print that way.
That is awesome. I am super excited about that idea. Now, is that call still open? I had seen that it was open.
So ice cream is going to stay open through this year. We have enough stories to release this summer and then probably some of next, and then we'll close it down.
That's what happens when you're popular.
I know. Christmas cookies, we've already closed. January 1st, we're closed to submissions on that already.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking, I had talked to Nan briefly and I was like, I really want to do one called Sunday, Bloody Sunday.
Oh, yeah.
She was like, all right. I love her cautious because she's like, I know I'm going to like it, but sometimes when you start out saying it like that, I get a little nervous because your tone is very like sneaky 3-year-old trying to get a truck away from me. And I'm like, how about Sunday, Bloody Sunday, man? She's like, oh no. I promise I'll follow the rules. I promise. Well, that was, I had my very first publisher that I had put the Ivy books out through, they closed. And I cannot tell you how much I appreciate being able to come to Nan and saying, look, these books are really good and they're gone now. And I have a lot of people who love to read them. Is there any, and she's like, you know what, I'll talk to Rhonda. And she did. And you were like, okay, send them over. Let's see what happens. And then they came out and then I got to write a 6th one and people are still buying those. Yeah. And I love that they're still buying them. And so then I came to you and I was like, so I have this idea where I write these 3 short stories and then you put it into a book. And you're like, all right, look, I'll do that. But you have to promise me that there's going to be at least 6. And I was like, I swear to you, I will not let you down on that. And I didn't. And, but I was like, I like that you and the company itself seemed to be in a position to kind of flow with what's going on and make decisions that make sense to you without having to explain them to a big huge committee or and so there's just more room.
Every once in a while I'll say, well, I've got to run it through the team, and it's like that just means I have to think on it a little while.
Yes, that's kind of like saying, well, let's wait until your dad gets home.
Right, exactly. And sometimes I'll get an author pushing back on something and I'll say, well, I got to take it to the legal team and it's, see what they say.
Yeah.
It's like one lawyer.
Right. But it still is you. But I really feel like a lot that you've done right also is, yes, it's a family. Yes, you want to be a nice, friendly, gentler place for an author to land. Yes, you really are involved in what's going on. However, at the root of it, you're still very professional. And still very much looking to, you're not just publishing anything that comes through. It's not like, oh, we want to be gentle, so we're just going to put out this book that we know that needs like a ton of work, but I don't want to be mean to anybody. So you have, fortunately, in my eyes, you have found that balance between, yes, gentle place for an author, but still require quality work, because that is your brand.
Yep.
Yeah. And that makes a big difference. And I love being called a rose, and I love being in the garden.
Well, and that whole thing was has kind of morphed away only because we've gotten into this whole mainstream fiction. But in the beginning years, every line had a rose name, and we used to have a greenhouse on the website where you could clip articles. And it was very much more a garden gate and a whole garden theme. So the people that have been with us forever, they understand this whole roses theme.
Yeah.
Some of the new ones are like, I don't know what that means. And well, it's the early years, but
the OGs. The OGs are the roses. Yeah.
That's
I'll always be a rose. That's all there's. I even have I have my sweatshirt, my zip up hoodie. I have my travel mug. I have my stickies. I have pens.
We love swag at the press, let me tell you.
Yes.
And not having in-person conferences really, squelched my shopping last year, because I was like, I want to get these candies because they're really cute, but they're going to sit on my shelf for a year.
Right. What's the point of that? And I do appreciate, though, that you guys did start out in a virtual world so that when something like this happened, it did not really pause us. I felt like, because you were still able to do so many of the things that you were doing. You didn't have to figure out how to send people home because they were already at home.
Right.
And I was saying earlier, so I have had Nan since day one. And I've had Debbie Taylor as my cover artist since day one. I've had a couple of different senior editors. Every single person I have ever worked with at the Welders Press, I'm like, seriously, can we go to dinner or something? Like, I don't want to stop talking to you, because they are very friendly, but they are also like, I have been corrected in a couple of manuscripts where it's like, oh, we really need to. And I'm like, no, absolutely. I see that. And the way that it's presented is not, this sucks. It's more like, can we make this a little better? So is that something, like, when you bring an editor on, do you ask if that's the kind of editor they are, or do you ask that they are that kind of editor?
So when I interview or talk to editors on the phone, I explain to them about the kinder, gentler thing, and that we grow writers here. Yeah. And one of the things I always say to them is, I don't care if the only positive thing you can find in that manuscript is that she is a girl named Brittany. You tell them, I love heroines named Brittany. You give that writer some sort of encouragement.
Yeah.
Our thing is, you're going to love being rejected by us.
Yeah.
It's the Disney experience.
That's actually true. So I have friends that have been rejected. And they're like, it was the sweetest thing. Like, they gave me this really great feedback and told me, and even the ones that weren't a revise and resubmit, because I know you don't do that for every single person, which I had an episode a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, look, if you get a revise and resubmit, you better do it. Like, they did not take that much time to give you this kind of feedback, they are expecting that back. So you better make sure that you're fulfilling your end. Now, if you have since thought, maybe I don't really want to be with a publisher or whatever, like if it's a different, or something happened, like there are a couple of smaller publishers that had some issues. So if they're in the middle of the issues and you're like, oh yeah, not revising and resubmitting, in fact, never submitting again to you, that's one thing. But with the Welders Press, if that editor is taking the time to really ask for, they do mean that. They're not just blowing smoke up your skirt. They really do want to see it again, but I have had friends who were like, I got rejected. And I was like, oh, and they're like, but it was so nice. Rhonda's good at that.
Well, because we try to, not discourage writers, but I also tell editors, if you really don't want to see that again, you need to make it clear, because otherwise authors will take that as a sign that they want to see it again. So we're trying to, like you said, walk that line where thank you, but no thank you. Maybe this one needs to go into the bed, and maybe you need to, never bring it out to the light of day again. But you could write something awesome the next time.
Yeah. But I don't. To me, that makes sense. I mean, I have enough rejections to paper my bathroom and not have to overlap, because that's part of the business.
Right.
But I do think, like, if you can get a rejection that makes sense, but one that says, thank you so much for your submission. Unfortunately, this is not quite the book that we're looking for. You did really well with this. If you have something in the future, we'd be happy to look at it. That makes more sense, because not that I'm an editor, but I envision myself, if I was an editor and I got the same book like 4 times, I would be like, how do I nicely tell you, please don't ever send this again? So I do think that you guys do a good job up front of saying, it's a good book. It's not quite what we're looking for, but if you have something else, we'd be happy to look at it. So, and I had a friend who had that too. And I think she might have sent to you guys like 4 or 5 times. And I think on the 5th time you bought her book, or contracted her book. And now she's like 3 deep in you guys, I think, and loving it. Because she's like, I've wanted to be at the Welders Press since you were at the Welders Press. And I was like, really? Because 2006, huh? And she's like, yes. And it's 2019. And I just bought my first book. And I was like, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, sometimes you just keep on trying. And she has loved her experience with you. And that, I love your book buying system, and the fact that your cover artists actually do read the sheets.
They do. And they do their very best to bring to life the book of the cover of your dreams, because if you don't like your cover, you're not going to promote it. You're going to hide it, right? You're going to go, I hate this cover.
Why doesn't everyone understand that?
No, they don't. And that's what the hardest thing to explain to authors is, that if you were with a big house, you'd have no say.
No,
or very
not really.
Say. And they don't get that, because they will argue with us about a cover, and we'll say, do you understand how rare it is for a publisher to even give a whit what you want?
What is really funny is that I was talking, I did a podcast by myself that was like publishing, how I've done it, and like the difference. So I talked about you, I talked about Dramar, I talked about Harlequin, I talked about Kensington, and just kind of went through. And I was like, look, here's the thing. If you are trusting them to put out your book, then you need to trust them to know the market enough to know what kind of cover needs to go on.
Right.
Yes, absolutely. If they ask for your opinion, give it. Yes, absolutely. Do not expect them to absolutely take it. Like Debbie and I were talking one day, because she was like, okay, well, what I don't really understand from the form that you filled out. What are you looking for? And I was like, okay, well, I want blah, blah, blah. And she's like, that's too many things. Like, we can only do like, if you want this as a thumbnail, thumbnail, it needs to be like 3 prominent things. That's it. Right. Like, you can't have like a Richard Scarry picture on the front of your book. You can't have a Where's Waldo, because nobody's going to see. All they're going to see is a bunch of squiggles. And I was like, oh, Okay, no, that makes sense. I do appreciate that. And so we went through and we did the three things, and I was
Mhm.
like, no, that totally. So I come to you because I believe that you are capable of doing things that I am not. And I stay with you because I know that you're capable of doing things that I am not. And like Lisa, with marketing,
Yep.
super, super smart, very innovative. I feel like, moves through as quick as lightning, which I adore her, but I'm like, whoo, okay, I got it, but give me 1 second to catch up. I mean, but I mean, you want to be able to trust your publisher. You want
Right.
to be able to, you're giving them your book baby, hoping that they are going to take it to fruition in a way that you will feel happy about. But you also have to be ready to compromise a little bit.
Hmm.
I mean, I think sometimes that it's like, you can't have it all.
Right.
There is a reason that we know what we're doing. We do need that scene taken out, because while you might be okay with it, and so was your mom, there's
Yes.
not a lot to recommend it, because we know our readers. And in
Right.
knowing our readers, that's not going to go very well.
Right.
I don't think, if you can't trust that they're doing the thing, then you need to check yourself and figure out what you want. And if you want too much control, then you need to go somewhere where you can control that,
Sure.
because you guys do a phenomenal job. Like I have never had a book where I was like, oh, what's this?
Yeah. Yeah. No,
you know,
it's
no.
my editors and the artists, they work together because they all want your book to be the best it can be.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've had many compliments on the covers, especially the
Mhm.
Ivy covers. Everybody
Yes, they're
loves
beautiful.
everybody loves the Ivy covers. And I'm like,
Yeah.
as do I. As
Yeah.
do I.
As do you.
Yes.
They're
And the
gorgeous.
insides are really pretty too.
Hmm.
That was the other thing. Because I had seen some other companies that my friends had gone with, and I'm like, oh yeah, no, type is way too close together. Not a, so you have a good product also,
Yep.
and I think that that's also something to look for. So we're actually coming up on time. That went a whole lot faster than I thought it would.
Well, when you and I get talking,
I,
it just goes fast.
I
Just goes
know.
fast.
I know, seriously, I'd love to have dinner. we
Yeah. Well,
we
I
probably
miss
still
the
be there.
conferences.
I
I
know.
miss all these conferences, sitting with
So do I.
writers and
I
I've done
miss
so many Zoom ones, but it's not the same as when you run into somebody, you're like,
no.
hey, let's go get coffee. And you're like,
Yes.
yeah,
That makes that's actually the part of the conference that I live for.
it's the
I
best.
mean, I don't mind taking some classes. I've taken some
Right.
classes. I've learned some stuff.
Hmm.
I was at an RWA once that, like, we were having a published author kind of sit down, and somebody was like, I need a tagline, and I write like really cute um contemporary romances. And I was like,
Right.
okay, well, I don't use mine anymore. Do you want it? And she was like, what is it? And I was like, it's Come Home to Love and Laughter. And I used a real estate picture from Vista Print, and it was all these little houses. And she was
Uh-huh.
like, are you serious? And I was like, yeah. So she's still
So
using
she's
that to
not
this day.
nice.
And I was just like, yeah, like, so I love the interactions.
The
And while I
sharing.
enjoy talking to you like this, I
Right.
would much rather be munching down on like an appetizer or something
I
right now.
know. Yep. Well, and it's like we take pictures at conferences, and I sit
Mhm.
across from people, and they're nervous. It's their
Yeah.
pitch, and they only got 6 minutes.
Yeah.
And I'd much rather sit down at a table with them and hear about their dog and what
Yes.
their cat barfed up yesterday.
Yeah.
It's just
Yes.
it's
Yes.
much more enjoyable than the formal pitch sessions.
Absolutely. I have monitored those before, and I'm like, oh, these are so painful. They're
They
so
are
painful.
painful. And the reality of pitches, unfortunately, for your writers is you could pitch me the best book in the world and you could spin a tale, but if you can't write, I'm not buying it.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter. Now, on the flip side, though, Gabby, here's the flip side.
Yes.
I have taken pitches from authors, brought the book back to the editors and had them say no and say, oh, no. You don't get to say no because I like this book. So figure out a way to contract it, fix it, because I really liked the story. Right. And that's happened a couple of times. So there are the yin and the yang of that. There is
absolutely. Absolutely. And that's, I mean, I think one of the beauties of a smaller press is that you are not as beholden to as many people above you. Like when you look at the big five, big four, I don't know, they've all bought each other now. So maybe we're big three. I have no idea. But at the bigger New York publishers, what you have is a lot of times they are, giving an advance of like $50 million to somebody that they're never going to be able to actually make that much in sales. So they make that money off of the smaller or the more mid-list people. And, but they cannot take a book that they are not certain that they can shelve in one place in Barnes and Noble, that they can put in exactly one category, and that they know for certain that there's a reader base. And so that's the other thing that I highly recommend the Wild Rose Press for, is you guys can take some chances. You're not going to publish something that you're like, that is never going to fly. So let me just put out there for the listeners, please read the submissions page.
Oh God, yes.
Do not submit anything to anyone until you have read and memorized, perhaps even tattooed on your forehead, the submissions page, please.
Right.
Because you guys take the time to put it out there. And quite frankly, if I were a publisher or an editor, and like the first thing is that you can't even send me a manuscript the way I asked you for it.
Right.
It's going to be like the restaurant. If I asked for my eggs to be over easy and you give me a scrambled, it's going back.
Right. Right.
Please send me what I'm looking for. But you guys you're not as beholden to, well, look, if we can't sell, 10,000 of this, then, or, if we can't at minimum send 25,000 of this, we can't take a chance on it.
Right.
Whereas you have been able to say, a junkyard with ghosts attached to everything.
Sure.
Know what? Bring it on. Let's see what happens.
Let's see. Why not? We got nothing like that.
Well,
yeah, it's
really
definitely helps that we have the flexibility that we don't answer. RJ and I don't answer to anybody but each other. And so there's some books that sell and there's some books that just never will. And we hope they balance each other out. And the submission guidelines, I used to be really, really nice, and I would take the things anyways. And now I've gotten to the point where I have a form email that goes back that says, please follow our submission guidelines. Here's the link right here, right?
In case you didn't see
in case you couldn't find it. Right. And so I've been doing that the past few years.
Good for you.
Because we get so many. And even in that, I apologize and say, we just get so many that we just simply can't look at you unless you follow the way we want it.
Right. But I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
There's nothing. And other publishers wouldn't even do that. They just throw it out.
Exactly. And you're very clear, and you're not asking for a lot. It's not like, well, please make sure that every third word is, 16 point serif, and every second word we'd like in Times New Roman 13 point. Margins must be, at 1 3/4. Very standard stuff. But you are asking for something specific. And to me, if you take the time to ask for something specific, then I, as an author who wants to work with you, should take the time to make sure that I'm hitting the marks.
Yeah.
So, other than, me who sends the wrong file.
Other than that.
Right. I do it right now. So let's just look at that as growth.
That's right. We grow writers. We grow writers.
You really do. You really do. I mean, and I can't tell you how many people I have said to, I am so thankful that I started out with the Wild Rose Press, because I learned so many things and really was able to stumble a couple of times and make some mistakes with you guys that I then did not make when I was farther out in the world in a less family friendly atmosphere. And there were certain things that they were like, oh, well, we don't. And I'm like, oh no, you're going to do that because because if the Welders Press can do that, believe me, I know that I am not asking too much.
Right.
And I get that you have different limitations and stuff, but I still want you to consider what I am asking for.
Right.
Because I'm used to being treated like this. And they were like, okay. And did I mention that I got what I wanted? Just saying.
I need to be kept to the style in which I'm accustomed.
Yeah, exactly. What exactly? Do not try to give me fake crayons if I am used to working with Crayola.
Exactly.
Don't do it.
No,
anyway, well, this has been so much fun. I wanted to, normally I end by saying, if you guys have any questions, comments, go ahead and put them down in the comment section.
Sure.
I would be happy to get them over to Rhonda if it's something specific that we didn't address, or if you want some kind of like additional information regarding something we did talk about, and I'll make sure she gets. And so Rhonda, what's next for you? Where are we going next?
Well, the cool thing next is we're doing some work with gaming apps. There's interactive games that you download. Chapters comes to mind, Spotlight, Romance Fate, and you become the heroine, and you need to know which way the story goes. So there's a lot of companies that are building these apps, and they need content. So they've been coming to us for all this content. So that's been, I didn't even know these games existed till January, right?
Wow.
And yeah, it's been very cool. And my marketing, Samantha, who's our social media manager, who's young, she dove into it and explored it. And she's like, hey, these are cool. So
that's awesome.
That's the big thing right now.
So be on the lookout for those. And the wildrosepress.com is the website. And there's a great function to be able to look for certain authors, to look for certain books. So make sure you go over there and check out what they have, because I guarantee you there is something for you on there.
There definitely is something for everyone.
Absolutely. And keep on growing your stuff.
Thank you very much.
Like a 6-foot sunflower now.
That's right. You passed all the roses in the garden.
No way, man. I'm still the rose on the trellis. Who's like, I'm very, very, I got a lot of thorns, but you're going to like me. I guarantee you. I smell
that's right. Always. Gabby, it's been great. I appreciate you having me. This is fun.
It's been my pleasure. I absolutely, I have adored you for 16 years, and that continues straight through to today.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being here, and definitely for giving me an opportunity to really grow in who I was, and to still want to be growing with you.
Well, thanks for trusting us with your books there, Gabby. We really appreciate that a lot.
It is my pleasure. All right, everybody. Thanks so much again for being with us for Out on a Limb with Gabby Allan and the absolutely amazing Rhonda Penders. If you have any questions, if you want any additional information, hit me up in the comments. If nothing else, have an amazing day.
Thank you.